morning. Welcome back to Impact. Great news. Winter is officially over. You can go outside in your T-shirt today. I'm just saying. Maybe I'm hopeful.
I think so.
It's a gorgeous day, and I'm pleased to be joined by Pastor Josh Friend. Good morning.
Good morning.
Josh is the pastor at Evergreen Community Church, which is in Thickwood?
Yeah, 101 Tundra, that's right.
Okay, where is that?
So Thickwood is you're basically before Thickwood starts turning into some of the wood buffalo and then coming back around to Timberley there. So it's right across from Dickens Field before Dickens Field kind of starts. So the actual Thickwood sign, if you're heading towards the highway in the right direction, you'll see the Thickwood sign, which is right on our property. Yeah, so.
Okay, so this is important to me to know what we're talking about. So if I'm driving what I call up Thickwood, heading towards Timberley, are you on the left or on the right?
We're on the left-hand side. We're basically the last thing before you go over that little creek by the Real Martin Drive and all that.
Okay.
Right there in the corner, nestled amongst the pines.
Yeah, it's a whole different country to me. I live downtown. So we're here to talk a little bit about a project that you have called the Eden Community Garden. Tell me about it and where did it start and where is it going?
Sure. Well, actually, I came to Fort McMurray September of last year, so I'm an import like many, and was getting to know this new church that I was a part of, and it was my first opportunity. I've always worked as on staff in ministry, so worked with other people on staff, but this was my first kind of solo lead pastorate, and so I was getting to know the people. And when in the midst of that, in January, Samaritan's Purse called and said, hey, do you have time for a coffee? And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is probably going to be a request for some funds or something like that. Can you add us to your schedule of donations and all that? But I sat down with a wonderful man named Roland, and Roland said, what are you guys dreaming about? And I thought to myself, I don't know. I've only been here for 4 years. I don't know what we're 4 months. I don't know what we're dreaming about. So I started to ask this question: what are we dreaming about? And all of a sudden, these through lines started collecting, and the intersections all pointed towards how do we use this wonderful property that we have, because we have a few acres there, in a place where not everyone has acreage. And how do we give back to the community in a meaningful way, leveraging our property to do that? And the idea, apparently, which was 20 years old, was to build community gardens at some point. So I called the guy from Samaritan's Purse, said, hey, can you come and meet with me tomorrow? I do have an idea. And so we sat down, and I think the first proposal I came up with was like, $4,000 or $5,000, something like this. Just give us some wood and we'll figure it out. It has now grown, like we're now with some of the volunteers and some of the other things that have been donated, the project is nearing $100,000 as a community garden project. And because we're doing everything right. So we've been taking our time since January, collecting a committee of people to help make decisions. We've hired a head gardener as well. So a gardener is part of this process, so that we can have someone from January 1st to September 1st next year in the gardens for 4 hours a week, helping people learn how to garden. So the idea was, how do we give back some of what we have here to the people around us that they could benefit from it? And people talked about the catharsis that comes with gardening and how it's good for us, and how mental health is something that's important to the region right now. And so all these sort of different things. All of a sudden, a teaching garden is going to go in there. We're going to have a meditative area. We have tactile gardens or sensory gardens for kids, so that you can be touching plants that otherwise you might not have a chance to do that. Accessibility gardens. We've got 2 beehives that are going in. So it's quite a comprehensive project at this point.
And the seed was planted in January?
Basically, yeah.
And so you must have had an incredible amount of work done in the spring leading into the summer. The pictures you just showed me, you have a garden up there now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been unbelievable, the response. Beautifully, we got to partner with some other groups. So I guess the main leading word for us has been leverage. How do we leverage an opportunity given to us by Samaritan's Purse, leverage our property, and leverage some of the partnerships that we have? So one of the partnerships we have is with Youth Unlimited, and they assembled a group of 35 kids in July. I say kids, but students, very competent students, some of whom were able to drive skid steers and stuff like this because they had licenses. So get the right idea. They were very tremendously helpful. But they came for a week because they wanted to bless Fort McMurray with time, so they stayed at the church. We partnered with the YMCA so that they had places to go and relax and stuff like that too. But they built many of the garden as you see it now. We also still have to have some professional contractors, like the fence that's going up in the spring is going to incorporate the entirety of the garden as well to make it a little bit safer for families who might bring their kids. The kids can be there safely, but also to try and ease some of the wildlife out of that space. Because a couple weeks ago I saw 2 deer while I was preaching in our back window. So we are so close to nature that way. We wanted to create an opportunity for other people to do that too.
This is going to be a royally dumb question because there's also a garden similar to what you're describing, a smaller scale, close to where we live downtown. So if somebody's listening, spring comes along and they want to somehow plug into this garden, how do they do that? And what's the rule? Is there rules? And how do they get involved?
Great. So actually, we just did an info night on Friday and another one yesterday. And the idea behind the info night is just to say, look, give us some of your information and we'll send you stuff as it develops. Because one of the things in this project I've seen as my role has been to slow things down to a pace at which we're happy with the decisions that are being made. Because I always feel like with projects like this, it can be so exciting that there's always enough time to do it twice instead of doing it right the first time. So we are still working out some of those rules. Garden plots are not going to be assigned and given out officially until the spring, but don't wait until then. Get involved with us now. One of the areas that we're giving people information already is through Facebook. So if you just search Eden Community Gardens, it's a group on Facebook right now that you can join. There's about 40 or 50 people on there now. That's a good place to start. You'll find me in there. Send me a private message or something like that. Or just email edencommunitygarden@gmail.com, and we'll basically start you in on the drip if you don't have Facebook. And what we're doing is we're sending out information like, we have Green Thumb Chats, which is a monthly discussion on gardening and all things related to it. What should you be thinking about in December to get ahead of things for April or May? Because the other thing that we have in our project is propagation tents and indoor lighting and all this stuff for starting all of these plants that we need. So we're growing organic, non-GMO Canadian seeds, and we're bringing all that stuff in order to start all that ourselves. So if you want to know about gardening, you want to get in on the information already now. So send us an email, edencommunitygarden@gmail.com.
You just used propagation in a sentence.
I did. Do I win something? Is that the word of the day?
Propagation. I honestly don't. I've heard the word, but it means where you do seedlings and allow them to start? Is that what the propagate
and coaxing
means?
them along. And so I'm actually the last person in the world who's qualified to answer this question. I've just been boning up on all things gardening. I have what I refer to as a black thumb. I can't grow anything. Like plastic plants die in my home. I am so terrible at it. And so I find it absolutely fascinating that I get to be a part of this garden project. But our head gardener is teaching me words like propagate. So I'm learning this stuff just like everyone else would I'm sure like some of this information. So yeah, just by following us, getting involved already now, she's already relaying information. She left to go to a conference that talks about whole aspects of gardening, including hydroponics, aquaponics. She lives in Sapre and has a biodome in Sapre. She grew artichokes this year in Fort McMurray. So we've got the right people involved and getting that information out there. So I'm learning just like everyone else.
We're talking with Josh Friend this morning about the Eden Community Garden, which is up, what did you say, Tundra Drive, up in Thickwood. And we're going to come back with more of Impact right after this. Welcome back to Impact on Tuesday morning. We should mention two things that are very important. One, a very successful Lionheart camp over the weekend put on by the District Recording Studio. Your daughter, Josh, was involved in that.
Abby
Beautiful
loved
voice.
it.
Oh, it was such a great weekend.
They do such a great job.
Yeah, the kids. I was particularly moved by the students we got to meet who came down from Fort Chip.
Yeah.
Like just amazing kids. So that was a great success. The other piece of news, of course, we need to acknowledge is that enough money has been pledged to keep this radio station on the air.
That's awesome. Yeah, it was so cool to be a part of some of this stuff last week, and I know a lot of our folks from Evergreen have been involved in the project for Love and Enlist It, and we have people who are involved in the board and some of that stuff with King Kids, and I'll tell you, we were elated to be able to be a part of that this past week too. Even the ministerial in town here with that $15,000 donation that came in through Thursday.
Wow.
And yeah, it was cool, and I kind of put my hand up, say, hey, can I bring that check over? I don't mind doing that, you know. So it was so cool to be a part of it.
It really is a testament to the impact that all the team here at 91.1 have on our community.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really great. Josh and I are talking about the Eden Community Garden up in Thickwood. Josh is the lead pastor at Evergreen Community Church. He is originally from Ontario. We'll forgive him that. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but Josh's claim to fame that we were talking about off the air is that he had the world record for singing the lowest note ever. How was that? A long time ago? We never talked about when that was.
I guess. Well, let me think now. At least 5-6 years ago now.
Oh, not that long.
Yeah. Wow. So it was, and it was at a time when I was doing a lot of singing, a lot of bass singing at the time too. I was traveling as a musician, doing 120 concerts a year type sort of thing, and so it was at a time when I knew that my voice could do this. It was a competition thing that actually I heard of through CBC Radio, and I did it on a lark, and it was really cool to be a part of it. Of course, I was with a group of 5 or 6 others who were able to sing these notes too. So you won't find my name in the Guinness World Record book or something like this. And I don't have an official plaque because I'm certain as quickly as I beat the record, there's another person of that list who also beat the record. So
yeah, when I think of low voices, I think of the guy from the Oak Ridge Boys singing Elvira.
Yeah.
What was his name again?
Richard Sturban,
who you've sung with in the past.
Yeah, we met a few times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty cool thing to have on your resume. You also do some voiceover work, which is fun.
Tons of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we ever do Beauty and the Beast again, you could do that like prologue at the beginning of the show. That'd be awesome.
At a time, in a place. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Yeah. I love the Movie Guy voice. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. Josh and his team at Evergreen Community Church came up with the vision of building a community garden. I guess you had a couple of acres.
Yeah, so
it must be more than a couple.
Yeah, well, yeah. The property is bigger than that as well. But the where we have it now, the design is because it's primarily for beginner or novice gardeners. What we had in mind was for people who didn't know how to garden and were a little scared about trying it. So hence why we needed a gardener on staff to help them. But we also wanted to invite people who maybe lived in an apartment. So we strategically have focused some attention on 3 or 4 of the apartments in Thickwood to say, we want to give you some property so that you can grow your own basil or whatever, because that little flower box on your patio is not doing it. And we got to remember there's a whole bunch of people in town who rent. And so if you're renting here, maybe you can't turn a 10 by 10 plot in your backyard into a garden without permission. And so we thought, okay, there's a few different people that could benefit from this, and others who might just benefit from the information. They've got the land, but they want to know more about how to set up their garden. So the vision has continued to grow in this way, and it's been very interesting to see how that's all come together. We had some interest now from the YMCA that they're going to do a Young Gardeners program in the summer. Awesome. So bring kids over to the community gardens. And we wanted a safe place for people to tell stories, to share with each other. I've been impacted deeply by some of the stories I've heard of people who talk about evacuation, coming back. So these stories are important things, and I think the best way that we connect with people, that we can really connect with people, is by sharing stories. And I think one of the things that gardening does is it allows us to connect with the earth. And so it's a way of grounding people in a common place together, but allowing them to grow together as well. So that's why we've kind of put a tagline with Eden: we are growing together, not just the vegetables or what have you, but also our community. As a part of that, we have 60 plots that are designed to give away. And if we have less than 60 people, some people might get a double plot or something like this. We're working that out. But what we will have is we're going to have 10 accessibility garden beds. On one side, they're wheelchair accessible, and on the other side, they're standing accessible, so that, say, caretakers who have someone who's in a wheelchair who would like to try gardening, they can come out, and actually the caretaker can be sitting right across from them, and both of them gardening at the same time. We also have about 25% of the gardens that we've retained, so that if you are given a garden plot, we want to encourage you to give back to the community. So one of the ways you can do that is you care for this 25% of the gardens, and all of the yield for that goes to the local food bank. We want the local food bank to have storage and stock of vegetables that are local, organic, seasonal, because one of the things that we're doing with our vegetables when we're all done is that it doesn't just stop in September just because the growing year is only 100 days or whatever. We're doing cooking classes and stuff like this as well. So I studied culinary arts for a little while as well, and worked in the restaurant industry. And we have a pastry chef who attends Evergreen as well. So we have several people interested in taking now people's yield and doing something with it. So pickling and jarring and canning classes, preserving. So we have stuff for butchery, sausage making, curing meats and stuff like this as well as part of this whole program. So it is gardening, but it's also what do I do with my yield when I'm done? And we're also hoping to invite people to engage with the local communities as well. So local food bank is a big one, but we'll do seed swaps, we'll do plant swaps and all that stuff at Evergreen too.
Josh, you talked about having 60 plots available. What is the size of a plot?
So a typical plot, that's based on a 4x4, which is not a huge plot. So I mean, it's not a huge plot, but it's enough to work around, get around, get a few things out of. For me, if I were given a 4x4 plot, it's the things I know I can grow, that I know I buy, that I know that are expensive. So it's like I want my rosemaries and my sages. I want those plants that I know that are hardy as well. But I know that it's also $3 when I go to the local grocery store to pick one of them up. So for me, it's you have to be a little strategic in what you're growing. But again, the hope is that this is a stepping stone. Since we've got into the project, we set out boundary markers, but there was one boundary marker that we didn't realize we had a lot more space. And so now we've got a tract of land about 20 feet by about 100 that we thought, well, maybe do we demonstrate what a larger garden looks like? So, we're going to get creative there. And who knows, just where they cut down some of the trees down the road there near Thickwood before it gets to Abraham Place, I think to myself, well, there's a good few acres there. I wonder if we could build another community garden just down the road. So that's cool. Phase 12, though. Phase 12.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Pastor Josh Friend about the Eden Community Garden, which is an amazing initiative, really just started in the last year, making excellent use of land that the church has and inviting a lot of people to plug in. The best way to plug in, even I know it's winter and we've got a winter to go, but if you tap into the Facebook page, so Eden Community Garden on Facebook.
It's a Facebook group,
Yeah, that's the best way.
Yeah, probably. You can send us an email too if you're not on Facebook, edencommunitygarden@gmail.com, and someone from our committee will get back to you as well. Essentially, we're gathering information to make sure that people are just staying in the loop. So
some people are not on Facebook?
I've heard of these people.
All four of them. You're listening to Impact. It is a team effort of United Way of Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo, Fuse Social, Shaw Spotlight, your McMurray Magazine, and none of it would be possible without our friends right here at 91.1 The Bridge. Welcome back to the show. Hope you had a great Remembrance Day long weekend. In the studio with Josh Friend, pastor at Evergreen Community Church. Unbelievable, who just walked in the door. I don't know where he came from, but our special guest this morning, James Earl Jones, in the house. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It is a delight to be here.
What's your favorite Star Wars scene?
Probably the I am your father. Yeah. Probably.
Josh has an amazingly low voice. Isn't that great? And you met James Earl Jones
Yeah,
in an airport sometime.
An airport. This is 3 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow,
Yeah, you never know who you're going to see coming and going, right?
Yeah. So you're a voice actor. You're a singer. You're a pastor. You're learning to be a gardener. I'm missing something. Oh yes, you said you're culinary arts. You landed on the moon back when you were younger.
Something like
What
that.
have you not done, sir?
Oh, actually, become anything more than mediocre at all of those things that you've just listed. Actually, I'm a master of none, and I suppose what I'm mastering in my life is being broad, I guess, in what it is that I do. So if I master anything, I hope that I master that. I like a new challenge, and I like thinking that I can try something, and if I don't do it well, I just stop doing it. This is why I never go bowling. I'm terrible.
I love the fact that you reached out to be on the show and talk about the Eden Community Garden. In the previous segment, you were kind of touching on this, but I want you to speak about the garden as a vessel, as opposed to it being a thing, a vessel for other things.
Yeah.
So what's the vision for what that might mean for people?
Yeah, so I guess that's the overarching question. How can we best use what we have for other people? And so that describes the vessel, absolutely. So for us, we see it as a place for people to come and share with each other real life stories, do some real work together where you can put your name on something and say, I did some work today. Gardens have an amazing ability to offer a delight for the eyes, but also a delight for all the other senses as well. Like you smell the sage and smell the rosemary, and you get to see these beautiful flowers, and you get to experience that. You get to hear the bees, because we have a couple of beehives, and we'll have a pollinator's garden. But in all of that, we want to give people an opportunity to sit down, relax, and just be. And one of the things we hope that will allow them to do that is basically in our meditative or teaching area, be about accommodation for about 40 people in there, and with 4 large benches. And right now we're working on getting some benches that we could reclaim that were damaged or bruised by the fire, that we could reclaim those benches and use those benches as a place for people to come, meet, gather, and talk, share some of those stories too.
Did you have the experience growing up in Ontario of having a family garden?
We did. Oh, yeah. We had a massive, massive garden. We lived, when I lived in Chatsworth, Ontario, it was about 40 acres of what we lived on. But the garden for us was about an acre. But
wow.
I come from a family of 7 children, so you got to feed them somehow.
So what's your memory of the harvest time? Did the kids get involved in pulling potatoes and digging potatoes?
Yeah, yes. So I remember distinctly the feeling of soil and feeling out the fingerling potatoes in the soil. There's just something about that dirt. I remember also that we used to have a swing set just close to where our garden was. And when it was time to take a break, that mid-morning break or mid-afternoon break from playing, my brother and I would kind of look at each other, and we'd go in and pick a green pepper, and we'd just eat a green pepper. So we harvested continuously.
Yeah.
But the general harvest was more my mom, because she had a better eye for it. But
yeah. Josh Friend has been our guest here on Impact. I got to just check my time here. We've got a few minutes left. Obviously, wintertime, the garden is at rest.
Sure. Yeah.
At what time of the year do you envision it starting to pick up? What month do you shoot for having activity?
There's activities every month. Every single month of the year. Yeah. So the idea right now is that we're generating a calendar of events, because right now we're building the program. Next year will be kind of our pilot running of it. So this year was to kind of build it. Next year we'll have a couple of things to build and add to the project, but then hopefully by June, July, we're in full kind of swing and operation, and that will be the first 7 or 8 months of us seeing what the project looks like. But even now, like we're starting propagating certain plants and starting certain seeds. Like you can grow lettuce indoor all year round too, so stuff like that might continue. It's going to be cooking classes when it's not gardening time, and also seed investments and things like this that we might need in order to make sure that we're good to go for the year. And other ideas too. So just one very quick one is that we put in a grant for the Alberta CIP in order to start a composting program. So it includes 6 massive Canadian-built, very all-weather units that will allow us to do composting the entire year round. It includes buckets for all of our neighbors, and we give our neighbor a bucket and say, here, compost your stuff, bring it over, dump it in, and just roll the thing. And at the end of this, at the end of this month, you can have as much compost as you want, because we will, with 80 people, we can probably generate a couple hundred pounds every couple weeks.
It sounds like it's a great time to plug in now, even
Yes.
though it's winter, at the the Eden Community Garden
That's right.
group on Facebook. Just search on Facebook and reach out.
Yeah.
Because spring will come before you know it.
Exactly.
Sounds like a great project. Josh, thank you so much for coming in.
It's been my pleasure. It's great.
Josh Friend is the lead pastor at Evergreen Community Church up in Thickwood. They have put together the Eden Community Garden on Tundra Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have their first big inaugural year next season. It's going to be awesome. Thank you for listening to Impact. It is a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw Spotlight, Your McMurray Magazine, and 91.1 The Bridge.